always fun. Sometimes it's more fun, sometimes it's less fun. So I want to chat about some of the things that I've kind of run across from agents in the past. But this is one of the things is that let's chat about some of these agents. Let's talk about some of the situations that come up. And I'm not talking about you guys. I'm talking about other brokerages or other agents that are doing some of these things. So let's talk about reality check. Realtors rank at the bottom 20% of professions' reputations according to data presented by NAR. 20% realtors do. Okay? Next one, according to NAR, there are approximately an 80% turnover in real estate agents every 2 years. Okay, so every 2 years, you might see 80% of these agents come in and go out of the business. Okay? Some estimate that nearly 50% or more of realtors are part-time, so real estate's not their priority. 80% of business is done by 50% of the realtors. That means the other 50% is fighting over 20%. And this is all according to the Real Data Strategies. So it's nearly the same in any market. Any market you're in, you're going to have top 80% doing 50%, and the rest of 20 fighting over that 50%. Okay? Most realtors have no formal business training. More than half of all realtors are believed to make less than a teenager working at a drive-thru in a fast food restaurant. Okay. So, is it any surprise that we don't get people return our calls? Does that happen still? Do people still not return calls? What the crap? I just don't. Okay, so people still don't return calls. Back in the REO short sale days, now people, I'm so busy I don't have time to answer your calls. But people still aren't, because they're so busy, they're not returning calls, correct? Or they're just not returning calls. Just not returning calls. Okay, fill out contracts completely wrong or incomplete. A couple months ago, one of the agents brought to me a contract that was written on, you remember the triplicate forms? Remember those? The carbon copy ones? It was written on that. Written on that form. And so we actually had to get on the phone with the other agent to find out. She said, well, I have a stack of them, I want to get through them. I'm like, these are outdated. These aren't used. And this is dated 2005 is the RPA. She's like, oh, but I have a stack of them. I'm like, then throw them away. Why pay? You know, I'm like, oh my gosh. You have zip forms, you have updated things. So let's use the most correct contract forms. Next one. Finding technology that can help them do their job better. Next. Are horrible at time management. Let their egos get out of control after making a little money. There's agents that sit there and say, do you know who I am? Yes, I know who you are. Thank you. So letting their egos get out of the way. Not returning calls, pretty much harassing agents, and making it difficult to show. Lie to their customers, and co-op agents. Has anyone ever felt like you've submitted an offer and you're doubting if the agent actually presented that to their client? Absolutely. Anybody get that gut feeling that, do I know if my offer was even presented? Yes. Okay. So we're going to chat a little bit about how to overcome that also. Only care about their paycheck. Don't follow the rules, code of ethics, or even care to learn them. Disappear like Jimmy Hoffa when things get tough. And that's the thing is, we had a deal closing last week, and the agent on the other side had to return a form. And our agent was like, I've contacted them 3 or 4 times, and they haven't returned my call. But when escrow closed and the check came in, they were right there, jumping on the spot. Returned the calls, got what they needed, and got it taken care of. Okay, so we're going to chat a little bit about some of these actual headlines. Agent threatens homeowner with gun to get real estate sign back. I know your signs are important to you. This was pretty much a sign company put a sign on the wrong yard. The real estate agent went by. The sign was, out of the yard, on the side of the yard. So the real estate agent was upset that his sign was removed and that the guy actually threw it in the trash. So what happened is he came back with a gun later to get his sign back. This isn't one of you guys, I'm just letting you know. Next one. Practice real estate while in jail. Only in California. I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but you can actually practice real estate while you're in jail. You can close, and according to, what was his name? That's guy from real estate spokesman, Tom Poole. If the person is headed to jail, it doesn't necessarily make sense to use the department's limited resources to revoke a license. and refer the problem as a resource issue. They're already in jail. Why would we revoke their license? So if you're talking with somebody and it sounds like they have a limited amount of time, or if you notice in your caller ID it says county correctional facilities, you might be working with one of these agents. But only in California can you do that. Next one. These are fun. Real estate agent tries to earn business at a funeral. No, I used to, when I got my license, I don't think she's watching this, but it's okay. When I got my license, I had a woman that I knew, and she was a really good real estate agent. She said, oh yeah, I always went through the obituaries, and I would call up the widow and introduce myself, and then when they say, oh, my husband or wife just passed away, she said, oh, I'm so sorry, so she'd send them flowers with her card and a market analysis. So, let's not do this. Let's be a little bit above board on this. I mean, now the question is there anything unethical about this? No, there's nothing unethical about this. Is it slimy and sleazy and scummy and other S words?
Yes.
I can't say it, but yeah. So let's not do that. So let's chat about our experiences. This is what some of us have experienced. Some of you guys have, in the time I've been here, shared some of these experiences with me, so I want to share them with you guys. Number one, false advertising in the MLS. It's a 3-bedroom, but they're putting it as a 4-bedroom because that wall can be put back up, and you can always put the window back, and if you need to run electrical, you can run it back in there to the dining room. It could be a 4th bedroom. So it's advertised as a 4-bedroom. Let's make sure that when we look at the MLS, that we ask the right questions, but understand that if it says a 4-bedroom, you show up and they're trying to sell you that it could be a 4th bedroom in the garage, you might be one of these agents. Disparaging another realtor to clients or prospects. You guys ever heard this? You go to a listing appointment and someone says, oh yeah, so-and-so, I met with them and they mentioned you, and they said that you don't do real estate, or you don't do enough, or you said this, or you said that. Or you go to an open house. Sometimes on the weekends I'll go to open house, I'll just wear my shorts and t-shirt, walk around, and I'll talk with people, and sometimes they'll say, oh, you're working with an agent? And I'll pick an agent, say, oh yeah, I'm working with so-and-so. Oh, you don't work with them. I heard this and this and this. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I didn't. So let's not disparage other realtors out there, because the fact is that we don't know who you're working with. Take credit for other agent successes. They just sold the property, just listed it, #1 agent and #1 company. So they're kind of riding the coattails of other successes. Next one. This is my favorite one. Last mission, commission on it. Oops, I forgot about the past HOA dues. Let's just split them. If we don't take care of this, what's going to happen? The deal's not going to close. So we have to do this. So if you don't do this, the people aren't going to get the house, the deal's not going to close. Oh man, I wish you would have known about this beforehand. Let's just split this.
Check the PR.
Yeah. That's where. Stephanie, are you ruining the presentation? It's getting to that point, Stephanie. We're going to talk about it. So, anyways, oops, I forgot about that. This is where we're talking about asking some questions, other things. Last, incorrect status of listing, active when it's really in backup. Next one, verbal agreements that are never kept. Have you guys ever dealt with this where you had someone who said, well, didn't you say that we could do this? Didn't you say that swing set stayed? Didn't you say you were going to redo the carpet? No, I didn't remember that. Oh, well, I told my client you were going to. When we wrote the offer, they said that, I told them, like, yeah, I think you'll take care of it. Be careful of these verbal agreements. Why?
They're contracts.
Yeah, it's not the contract. The problem is you get hung up on this. I had a case once where I was a newer agent, and I was at the house when the buyer was showing the buyer's agent was showing it to his clients. The carpet was dirty. He said, well, you know, I'm hoping the seller's going to remove this carpet and put new carpet in. I said, no, I'll talk to them, but I really don't know if they're going to do that. He told his clients, oh, I talked to the listing agent. He said, like, yeah, he'll get it taken care of. So a week before escrow closed, the buyer's like, when are you going to put the new carpet in? I said, we never agreed to that. Well, yes, you did. My agent said you did. And the agent was like, no, remember you said that you were going to take care of it? I said, no, I don't remember saying that at all. I remember you asked me about that, and I told you that I didn't think that the buyer or seller would take care of it. So be careful of these verbal agreements. And if there is a verbal agreement, what should you do?
Put it in writing.
Put it in writing. Create an addendum. Create a counteroffer. Write it on a napkin. No, don't write it on a napkin. Put it in an addendum or in a counteroffer to clean that up. And if you feel like, well, he's pushing on this carpet thing, maybe I should put that in there that, properties as is, seller will not replace carpet, and make it very clear on there and have the buyer and the seller sign it. Next one, not submit your client's offer to their seller. How can we get around this? How can you get around that gut feeling that I don't really think that my offer got presented? Is there anything you can do, or it's just like, oh, that's how it is?
Aren't you allowed to talk to the seller yourself?
As the agent?
Yes.
No.
I
As
think
the
you could.
buyer's agent, you can't reach out to Quinn.
Asked to present it, physically.
Asked to present it in person. Does anyone remember when you guys used to do that? I said you guys because I wasn't around then. That was a standard practice, correct? You would set up a time saying, I'd love to sit down and present my buyer to your client. My first broker said he used to go and there'd be a line of agents in cars, and the first car would drive off, the second car moved up in that spot and walked in, and they moved out. And they would sit down with the listing agent and the seller and present their offer. Have any of you tried, don't raise your hand, but try and do that now. Ask the listing agent, say, I'd love to sit down and present my buyer, not just the offer, but present my buyer to your clients. Because that way you know about it 100%. And if a seller says no, you guys all know that on page 10 on the contract, at the bottom, there's a place for an initial saying that they presented it to them. Request that page. Okay? If you don't receive it, what I've done in the past, and I've kind of got some pushback on it, but I've actually sent my clients with their offer to the sellers saying, here's an offer we presented, I'm not sure if you received that. And surprise, surprise, the seller's like, oh, no, they said we didn't have any offers. Oh, well, yeah, I made an offer on your property, here you go. Please contact your agent, let them know you have an offer on the property. Okay? The impossible show listing that listing agent is trying to double in.
Yeah.
We have that. The property is open from 11 to 11:15 on Saturday when the moon is full. Listing agent must be present, but listing agent lives in LA and doesn't want to come down. Okay? And this is, we're seeing a lot more of this because there's a lot of people getting desperate because they realize that they want to double end it. You guys know that we're one of the only states that allows dual agency. Has anyone sold real estate in other, I was going to say countries, other states
Yes.
where they don't allow double agency? They don't allow dual agency.
It's illegal.
It's illegal.
Yeah.
What are you saying, Texas?
Yeah, in Texas, it's considered like unethical.
Yeah. So we're one of the only, and the issue is the more that we run into this problem, what do you think is going to happen here in California?
Well,
They're going to institute that here also. And this is one thing we see is that it's difficult for us to prove this as the agents. So we're going to chat a little bit about what we can do on that. Okay? So these are just a couple of things. Let me do one more. The disappearing agent and their disappearance leads to suffering clients. The listing agent takes the. We used to see this a lot more, but it used to, a listing agent would list the property, and then in the private market saying listing agent is not representing seller, negotiate with seller directly. You guys remember those people? The seller pays $750, and then the person puts it online and then disappears and doesn't do anything. And then guess who gets to represent both sides? The agent. The
yes,
buyer's
but
agent.
I've had that with regular agents.
Well, no, were we talking about disappearing agents?
Yes.
Yeah, well, where they put it on, and then all of a sudden you're trying to get documents from them, you're trying to get the close, and they either don't care, or they don't know enough, or they're at their other job and they don't have time for it.
Even the lender contacting me.
To get documents.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is any of this stuff surprising to anybody here? But isn't that sad? That we're just kind of like, that's our industry, that's what it is, that's what we do. So let's chat a little bit about tips to protect yourself and your clients. Number one, trust your gut. In most of these situations, you knew going in that this agent was going to be trouble. The warning signs were there. So trust your gut. If you knew going in that this person isn't returning calls, that this person isn't, is not on top of things, the MLS is incorrect, that it's been on the market for 120 days because no one's showing the property and they're trying to double end it. If you go into it like that, go in with eyes wide open. Don't sit there and say, well, I'm giving benefits of doubts. I'm sorry to say this, but a lot of times I always felt like I entered transactions feeling like I'm working with a schmuck on the other side, I should treat it like that. And I know we shouldn't do that, but to protect my clients, I always went in and do as much investigation as I wanted. So yeah, if you're going to sit there and say what decision you're going to make, you're going to hope for the best, I like pain, or avoid, decision's up to you. So, tips to protect yourself. Ask lots of questions early on. Get to know the agent as much as possible in the first conversation. This needs to happen on our listing side. We get a lot of this where the buyer's agents come in and they don't call. Most of us should call, correct, the listing agent before we submit an offer. That should be a standard practice to reach out to the listing agent and say, I've got a buyer interested in your property. I'd like to present this offer. If not, as a listing agent, if you receive an offer, take the time to reach out to this agent that submitted the offer and ask them some questions. Because then you'll know what type of agent they are, if they know what they're doing, and also how they're going to approach a transaction. Share your concerns, recommendations with your clients, and even suggest another property. If buyer, if you believe the agent is going to make the transaction impossible. Sometimes we have to do that. Sometimes we have to sit there and say, you know what, I called this agent for showing for last week and I haven't been able to get into it. We submit this offer, I haven't heard back from. I don't know if when we enter into this transaction, if it's going to be as smooth a transaction as I'd like, because it feels like this agent is not on the ball and not wanting to return our calls and wanting to actually sell this property. Don't be afraid to share that information with your client and let them know that. Without sitting there saying, this guy's a schmuck and I know this and that, but sitting there saying, in my experience, what I've tried to do to protect you, client, is reach out to the agent and I have not had any success. It's just kind of a red flag for me. What would you like to do, Mr. Client? Or Mrs. Client? Next one, look for red flags on the MLS listing. If it states at the bottom of the private marks that, you know, listing agent is not representing seller in transaction, you know that you're going to be going in and doing both sides. Or if you go on the MLS and in the public remarks it says nice property, period. Just know that you're probably not working with an agent who's spending that much time. Or you go online, and this is just a silly thing, but they have one photo that's from their cell phone as they're driving through in their car, and they take a picture, and that's what they put online. So these are red flags that you should kind of look for, and don't ignore them, because the problem is, what happens when you get into escrow with these types of agents? You do all the work, and the thing is that your client's it's already a stressful transaction. It's a stressful transaction when you have two competent agents on the deal. If you're trying to do both sides of it, and you're trying to work with an agent that's, you know, Jimmy Hoffa, not around, you've got to understand that it's going to be more stressful for your client. And there's nothing you can really do about that. But you also know you need to investigate before you head into that transaction. Next one, do your own research. Don't rely on the MLS. I got sent a listing from an agent that listed a property in 4S, and it stayed on there, no Melrose, no HOA. I'm like, oh, well, that's cool. So we looked into it, and it was a condo in 4S, and the agent was from LA, and so the agent's like, well, that's pretty cool. It looks like they paid off their Melrose and they don't have any HOA. That's a pretty sweet deal. I'm like, no. That's not what that is. Let's ask some more questions and let's investigate and let's pull up our own PR. Let's check this out and make sure. And what do you think we found out? There was Melrose and there was HOA. So the agent emailed this agent and said, hey, just want to make sure, you know, in the MLS it states this and this, but I just want to make sure you're aware that it's incorrect. And the response back, maybe I'll shoot it off to you guys. I'll blank out the agent's name. But it says, don't tell me how to do my job. I know, you know, I know what I put in the MLS is correct. So, what do you think our agent did?
Put it on the internet.
They went to their client and said, this is what we're dealing with, this is what we're seeing. I don't trust that this information is going to be accurate, and I don't know throughout the transaction how it's going to be. So the buyer decided to go with other transactions. So, and funny to find out, 3 months later, that listing was expired and listed with another agent. But do your own research. Don't trust the information that's there. I know it's kind of tough to say that, but you've got to sit there and do your own research on that. Next, get your clients on board and demand your escrow, title, and mortgage loan officer. The more control you have over everything, the less you have to rely on the agent. I've shared a story before where I called, one of my agents had an issue with the escrow company. I called, in the background, I heard a small dog and a baby crying. I'm like, oh, did I catch you at home? She's like, no, I'm at the office. I'm like, oh, okay. And she's like, oh yeah, I work out of my house. And I'm like, oh, okay, well that's okay. All right, so I want to talk about this issue with the transaction. We're trying to look for escrow documents. Oh yeah, instructions. I typically take, I don't know, about 2 weeks to get those out because I'm super busy and super swamped. And I'm like, really? 2 weeks to get escrow instructions out? Oh yeah, all the agents know that, that's typical. And I'm like, no. But what happened? We were already in escrow. We were locked in that. We made demands. We made demands on the escrow. We had our legal get on board and say, no, you need to get these disclosures within 7 days. And we didn't do it. And the escrow ultimately fell apart after our client had paid for a home inspection and appraisal. Okay, so this is why you need to make sure and investigate these things. If somebody says, no, I want to use my escrow company, be bold enough to sit there and say, no, I want to use mine. And if not, investigate those other companies to make sure that, number one, they're legit, and feel free to reach out and talk to that escrow officer. And there's a small baby and a dog in the background. Say, Kevin said hi, and we should probably do somebody else. Okay, next one. Tips to protect yourself and your client. Use your ego against them. I know. Oh, it's called manipulation. But sometimes you have to sit there and say, oh yeah, let me help you out with this. Let me see what I can do. And go over and beyond. Just because sometimes to get these deals through, you have to stroke your ego a little bit. Next one. Find out who the agent's manager broker is. Call the board if you have to and find this out. If you don't know, talk with me and I can find the information out. And I do not mind. I enjoy getting on the phone with some of these brokers and managers and talking with them and letting them know what's happening. But what's the issue? A lot of these guys are what? A lot of these issues are what? They're part-time, or what was that, Anwar? Their own. They are the broker.
They are the broker.
They are the broker and the agent and the receptionist and they clean the toilets too. So that's one of the issues I found out is a lot of these things are. And so what do we do after that? We'll chat a little bit more about what we can do. Use counteroffers to clean up. That's why I bolded this. Bolded? Bigger?
Made it
Emphasize.
I made it big. I don't know, Kat, what did we do on that?
Capitalize.
Capitalize.
Shouted in caps.
Capitalize that. We capitalize that. Use a counteroffer to clean up things. Don't figure, oh, we'll clean it up in escrow. Don't do that. If there is any ambiguity about what's happening, clean it up with a counteroffer in the beginning. I've had up to 8 counteroffers. Anybody beat me on that? Anybody have more than 8 counteroffers at a time? 8, we're here 9, we're here 9, 8. Oh, got a 9, got a 9, got a 9. 10, got a 10. We negotiated back and forth for 2 weeks. 13? Who said 13? You said 13? Great, guggly muggly, Shirley. 13 counteroffers. Man, I'm gonna use that next time. Okay. 13. Wow. Yeah, my counteroffers went back and forth over garden mills. Which one stayed? Which ones went? Which plant stayed? It was the dumbest. And me and the agent were sitting there going, "This is the stupidest conversation." And we were on board with like, okay, let's. But our clients wanted that rose bush. Well, you can have rose number 3 and number 4, but number 1 and 2 are going to stay. It was anyways. Fun times. Fun times. So, use counteroffers to clean things up. If you're not using the counteroffer and you're figuring out, we'll just resolve it in escrow, you are asking for some trouble. Clean it up. Clean it up properly and counteroffer 1, and then counteroffer 2. There we go. Thank you. And then 3, and then 4. Make sure they're numbered correctly also, so that when it gets spelled out, the story is told correctly. Okay. All right. Here's some things you can do to get justice and help for you and your clients. Okay, number 1, they can file a BRE complaint. Has anyone had to file a BRE complaint against somebody? Do that. It's not that difficult. You can file them anonymously, but go to bre.ca.gov and you can sit there and file complaints. Also, SDR and also North County, the Osbutman program, you can request an Osbutman to actually form a formal complaint against an agent. One of the things I've said numerous times is that we are a self-policing entity. What does that mean? What does it mean we're self-policing?
Everybody's looking at it.
Nobody can apply.
Yeah. If we're not reporting or complaining about these people, then what happens? They keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it. So these are some of the processes we have to take. And I've heard people say, well, I don't want to offer a complaint because if in the future, if I see one of their houses, I just don't want them to remember that I'm the one that made a complaint. That's okay. Let me know and I'll complain. I love complaining. Ask my wife. And so I don't mind going on and filling out the form. You tell me the story, you give me the details, and I'll go on and do the forms and fill it out for you. Because My issue is this doesn't get cleaned up, then it happens time and time and time again. And then what happens to professionalism of our industry? It gets flushed down the toilet. Okay. So, and like I said before, you can follow it or file anonymously. So if you don't want to be known as the one that made the complaint, you can file it anonymously or let me file it. I'm happy to do that. All right, next one. If the BRA complaint is filed, so what happens to the agent? Okay, so the agent can lose their license, but also if the Board of Realtor complaint can lead anything from just a letter of warning, education, or a $15,000 fine and temporary or permanent suspension at MLS and their association. Okay, so there is some teeth in what can happen, but we just need to make sure that happens on there. Also, so in reality, you and the consumer, you have a lot of power to stop these things. If you see this happening and you don't want to handle it because you're super busy, please let me know about it so that I can go ahead and take care of it. Because if this keeps getting pushed down the line time and time again, we're going to end up in an industry where there's just not a lot of professionalism left. But what has to happen, you guys have to take action on this. So if this happens, please let me know. Because what happens is, it might not happen with you, but somewhere down the line it's going to happen sometime. But also, don't be one of these agents. If the things I mentioned here, like, well, I don't want to return my calls all the time, you're one of those agents. So sit there and look at what you're doing, your business practices, and let's make sure as we head out there that we do a better job professionally than the next person. Because the fact is people look at our industry and it reflects on us how we act, but also how those around us do. Okay? So keep these notes. If you have any questions afterwards, or if you have any complaints you want to make about an agent, not our office, but someone else, please let me know. All right? Cool. Thanks, everybody. So let's do Caravan.